Welcome back. Today we are going to do the API integration. So first of all, what is API? API stands for the Application Programming Interface. So today we are going to integrate the API we will get the data and we will call the API and we will get the data in our component. So for that, what is the API first? First of all, API stands for the Application Programming Interface. Most of the front-end application needs to communicate with the server. Like if we want to get the data from the other server, so that time we are calling the API and get the data. And that is the back and to download or upload the data and access the other backend services. That time we are using API. So Angular provide us a client HTTP API for Angular applications. The HTTP client service has the Angular common HTTP API. So in these are some of the methods in the API, like the get we use to get the data using API. Then there is the other method is the post API, that when we want to create the data, when we want to send the data, that time we are going to use the post API. There is a put API. That time with the put method, when we want to update the data, that time we are using put. And then the last one is the delete. When we want to delete any data, that time we are using the delete. So how it works, let's start with the practical. So what I did, I created one component with the get API. So we will use in this API integration, we will create one service as well where we will call our method. Okay, so let's start. First I created this one, get API, and let's check it on the browser. It works. Okay, here is the component get API. So let's start with this one. Okay, to start with the API, first, what we are going to use, like when we are creating any information, like we want to create the form, like when we are using API, like we are creating one form, we have one form, and we want to send the data on the button click, right? That time we are using APIs. Now in this get user, so what we want, when we hit the API, that URL, we will get all the information there. There is a list of the users, okay, that we want to get it. Let's see. We are going to use, okay, let me show you. Like here we are going to use this one, API for that. Yeah, we are going to hit this API and we will get all these information. Okay, this is the information we have. We are going to get all this user list in our component. Let's see how we are going to do that. Let's start with this one. Okay, so first, before we can start the use of HTTP client in our we need to, we need to configure dependency injection. How to do this one, let me show you. So in this, first of all, we will go to the app config file, and here we are going to import the component, import from the Angular that we need to use for the API. Okay, first for that we need to use HTTP client. Okay, to configure this, to configure our dependency injection. Okay, so what is the dependency injection? Okay, the dependency injection is when we are develop a smaller part of our system, like any module or a class. That time we want to use some of the feature from the other class as well. For example, like if we may need HTTP server service to make backend calls. Okay, so dependency injection is a design to create and deliver some part of application to the other parts, and some part of the other parts to an application that require them. Okay, so first of all, first we are going to import this one here. What we are going to do, import. Okay, we are going to import provide client hydration. Okay, this one we need. Okay, then we need import provide HTTP client, and we need with fetch. Okay, okay, now we need to call them here. I'm going to copy it and we are going to pass it directly over here. Like we need to add all this method over here. We added this one provide HTTP client and the hydration one. Okay, then the HTTP clients. Okay, this one first, this is the first step we need to configure in our config file. Okay, now after that the next step is, now we are going to do all this stuff with the service. So okay, to create the service, what we need to use, like when we are creating the component, now we are going to create one service for this. How to create the service? Ng, okay, gc generate. Like for component we are using C, for the service we are using S for that. Okay, we can give the service name. We can keep any name like user data. Okay, okay, let's enter this one. This will give us two files. Okay, for that let's create this one first. This one is providing us the two files. This one is the spec.ts file that is for the testing purpose, and this one the user data service that we created. This one is providing, okay, this one is giving us a class, export class, so that we can import this method in our all the in the application, in the all the components where we can use this one anywhere. Okay, like this is export class, we can use this class in our whole web application. So let's do this one now. Okay, first of all, what is service? Okay, services are is a broad category, any for any value, functions, or the feature that what our application need. Okay, a service, what is the service? Service is a typically a class with a narrow, well-defined purpose. Means we can define our whatever we need in our application, we can define in this file, and we can use that content or the methods that we will create here, we can use that content in our whole application. Okay, services are the good for the task, like if we want to fetch the data from the server, like if we want to validate the user input or all these tasks for that. Okay, what by defining this process, we can inject the service class in our component. What we can do, we can inject, this one is giving us an injectable class that we can use to create our component. Okay, we can use that class in our component. Okay, so this one is already giving us a constructor. So here we need to pass here the private, the method name, and then here HTTP client. Okay, this one we need to pass over here to call the HTTP client. Now this one imported this state. Okay, for now after that we are going to create one function here. Okay, what that will do, that will get our, that will hit the API. Okay, now what we are going to do, let's say we are going to get the user. Okay, we are going to create one function here, method here, like get user. Okay, and here we are going to do return this dot HTTP, what the name that we given here, HTTP, and we are going to call here get method. Okay, so that this one will get the data from that URL. Now here we are going to pass that URL here, this one. Okay, we are going to pass this URL over here. Okay, what we did, we just create, its constructor were already there, so we create pass here the HTTP client. Okay, so now we are trying to get the data, and we are going to hit this one URL to get all the users. Okay, so after that, here we are going to return this one so that we are going to return it here, so we will use the output in our any of the component. So let's go to the component now. We are just going to create one function, over here, so that we are going to get method, we are calling this one. So now let's go to our component, like this one. Okay, get API that we created for this one. Here we are going to declare one variable like user data, where the API will send this, and we will store the data over here. Okay, for that one, we need to make a method. Let's call the function get user here. Okay, get user, and here we will do this dot get the user. This one is suggesting us already that we create over, let's change the name over here. Let's do this one get user data, and let's call this one get this dot users dot get get user data. Okay, to call the HTTP, here we need to import our service over here. First of all, first step is this one. Okay, so what was our, this one was user data service. Okay, now we imported this one. Okay, after that, then we are going to inject this one. We need to create one constructor over here. Okay, let's create one constructor. It's not over here. Okay, let's create one constructor here, constructor, and here we are going to pass private get user. Okay, and here we are going to call that user data service, the service that we created. Okay, so what we did here, we call the object of service over here. Okay, we call the that means we injected the service in our component. Now this is that's what we call the dependency injection. Okay, that means we just call we created one service and we injected over here, and we give this one the now get username. Okay, so now we created one here. Okay, now what we are going to do is this dot like the method, this one we will use over here, get user dot. Okay, I need to change the name, we can say user only. Okay, the user dot the name, this one will give us, we are going to pass over here that we created in the service. We created get user, we are going to, this one is suggesting this one method only because we just created one over there. So after that we are going to call that one here, and then we are okay. Now after the next step is we need to subscribe in the simple terms we can say, like if we want to meaning the subscribe, when we are subscribing for anything, like the for the newsletters or for the mails, we are subscribing and we are getting the information about that thing, the where we subscribe, we are getting the information, up to date information daily, or the we do not need to go over there and we need to check over there, they are providing us the information over here. So here we are going to do the subscribe. Okay, then here we need to pass one, create one variable with the any arrow function. Okay, this is to subscribe. Okay, with this one we are going to get the data here. Okay, now we created one variable over here. So we are going to store our, this is the response. When we will hit the API, then we will get the data in this variable. Okay, then we are going to store this data, user data response over here. Okay, this one we created. Now what we did, we call the service over here. Okay, let's check now if it is work. Okay, no, it will not work like that. We need to call one lifecycle hook also to get the data whenever it hit. Okay, so here we are going to call the ng on it, ng on in it lifecycle hook over here, and we will call this one here. Okay, okay, it should work. I think something is wrong here. Ng on in it, right? Okay, sorry, we need to add this dot ng on it get user. Okay, so what is ng on it? Okay, ng on it lifecycle hook. Okay, this one, the hook in the Angular, this is called the constructor. Constructor is, we call this constructor when the input should be initialized. Like when we want to initialize this method, whenever we want to initialize this method, that time we are going to call this one ng on it lifecycle hook. What we are going to do, we will pass this one over here so that it will initialize our input. Okay, we will get the, it is used to perform any additional initialization that is required for the component. Like if we will not call this function over anywhere, so where it will not give us the output. So for that we are going to call our this one function over here, ng on it lifecycle hook. Okay, so now let's check the result. Okay, here you go. If we are going to get API, we are going to check in the network. This one is giving us a status 200, that means we get our data. I consoled it, so we are going to get this one data. Here we are getting all the information from that URL that we hit, that we hit over that, the URL we hit, and we getting all the information here, all the user list. So let's display this information. Okay, let's go to the component HTML. Okay, here I am going to copy one of the table from the bootstrap so that we can pass it over there directly. Here you go. So here I created one table, okay, with the field name that we are getting from the API. When we are hitting, like we are getting all this information. We have ID, email, first name, last name, and the image. Okay, so I created this one. So what we are going to do now, we are going to use our loop ng for that. Okay, ng for, let, we can say x of the variable that we created in our ts file. Okay, where is our ts file? This one. Okay, we created here user data. Okay, this one. Okay, here we are going to call that user data, let x variable or user data x user data dot data. Okay, So this one is giving us a error ng4. So for that we need to import that common module. Okay, something is wrong with my laptop. Here we need to add that common module. Okay, let data. Okay, the error is we need to write all these in the double quotes. So here you go. Now it's good. Okay, so here we are going to use double curly braces string interpolation to get the data, to show the data over here. So first one is the ID. Now here is the email. Okay, it should be in the small one. Okay, now here we have that first name. If you feel like I'm too slow, you can please watch my video with the, you can increase the speed of the video and you can watch that one. I'm just slow so that everyone can understand what I am trying to do and what I am trying to show. Okay, so for the source one we need to use, okay, for the image source we are going to pass this one image, the source that we need to, and here we are going to pass the, it's not avatar, the variable name is avatar. Okay, okay, here you go. Now let's check this one if our data is over there. Okay, 1 second, let me see. Okay, here you go. Now this one we are getting all the data, all the user list that we can see over here. We can see in a component now, get API. Okay, so let's revise quickly what we did so that I know it's okay. Let's go this one. Let's revise quickly. First of all, what we did, we went to the config file and we import this one, provide client hydration, and all these provide HTTP client and with the fetch data, and then we call that over here. Okay, these are the providers we need to add it over there. Okay, after that we created one service. Okay, the user service. Okay, in the user service we create one method over here where we are going to hit the user API to get the data, and we call over here get data. Okay, after that we went, this is the common API. We can use this one get user method in everywhere. Okay, we can use in any component to fetch the user. So that is the benefit of the service. We can call these functions in our whole application, and we can just call this, we can just import this service and we can call this one method over there and we can get our data. Okay, after that we went to our get API component where we create one constructor here. Okay, user data service we injected over here. Then we created one function over here to subscribe the user so that we can, here we call the same API service over here, that function that we created in the service. Then we subscribe and we get the response over here and we pass this one data over here. Then we call this function in the ng on init to initialize our this one function. Okay, so that we can get the data when we are going to initialize it. Then in the end we created one table and show our data that we already did in the last video. If you missed that one, you can go and check over there. We created this one data and we use this loop to get and show all the information in our table. So this is the result. Here we are getting all the information in the user. So that's all for today. So we will do the other API methods in the next video. Thank you so much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe my videos. Thank you.